Hello and welcome. My name is John Torres, and I'm the engagement editor at Florida Today. I'd like to welcome three of the four Republican candidates for Florida Senate District 19, which includes Central and South Brevard. The seat was made vacant when State Senator Randy Fine announced he was running for U.S. Congress. He won the seat in November after State Rep Debbie Bayfield was termed out after serving 8 years as the state senator. Now, after a legal battle, Mayfield announced she was going to run to reclaim the Senate seat that she held for the previous 8 years. You almost need a scorecard to keep track, but here we are. A special primary election is being held on April 1st, and the winner of this race will face Democratic challenger Vance Ahrens on June 10th. Mayfield could not be here today, and she sent me her regrets. She's serving out her duties as a state rep and had a previously scheduled meeting with the Industries and Professional Activity Committee at 1 p.m. in Tallahassee. So I'd like to welcome our other three candidates who are here, Marcy Atkins, Mark Leitner, and Tim Thomas. Welcome and thanks for being here. I appreciate it.
Hey, thank you, John. Pleasure to be here.
I'm going to give you each 2 minutes to tell us who you are, talk about your background, what qualifications make you a good choice for state senate. We'll start alphabetically. We're going to go with Marcy Atkins and then Mark Leitner, followed by Tim Thomas. So Marcy, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having this forum for us, and thank you to everyone in Brevard County that's listening. I'm actually Dr. Marcy Atkins. I don't introduce myself that way that often. I've always just called myself Marcy. But in terms of this election, my professional credentials are important. I hold a PhD in economics, and that's important because there's no one in Tallahassee with an economics PhD or an economics background like mine. So I think that's really important. I moved to Brevard County as a child, so I've lived here longer than any other candidate, well-versed with all the issues. Term limits has been a huge thing for me and is why I jumped into the race 2 years ago. I find the fact that Mayfield wants to serve another 8 years in the Senate to be troubling. I think our vote in 1992 on term limits was clear, and we wanted it limited to 8 years total based on all the ballot language. So I'm very disappointed in the Supreme Court decision, and I'm disappointed in Mayfield wanting to run again. She's exactly who we don't want because we want new blood, fresh ideas. And I think that pretty much sums it up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Up next is Mark Leitner.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark Leitner III, and I was born and raised right here in Brevard County. I graduated from Vera High School. I went off to the University of North Florida, where I got my bachelor's degree in business. And more importantly, on the second day of college, I met my first ever girlfriend, who is now my wife of 3 years, Karina. And right after we got married, I knew when it came time to starting a career, raising a family, that I wanted to do it at home in Brevard, and that's what I've done. So my 9-to-5 is in heavy equipment sales, and we have a 1.5-year-old daughter, and Mark the 4th is due in July. And I'm sure as most of you can relate, having kids really changes your perspective on life. It made me start to ask the question, what's the future of Florida? And what happens to that future if we keep electing career politicians who are out of touch with the problems of Brevard and are instead seeking power? And I think we need to look to the future. And I believe I represent the future. And I want to protect the future of Florida and the future of Brevard. So I hope to earn your vote. And I hope when you go to the polls that you think about the future and what candidate best represents that future.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Now we'll hear from Tim Thomas.
All right, everybody. Hey, my name is Tim Thomas. My family and I have lived here in Brevard County for 19 years. I served in the United States Army and retired as a lieutenant colonel after 23 years of service, including 2 combat tours to Iraq. After I completed my Army career, I was asked by Vera High School to start up a brand new Army JROTC program, which I did. That program very quickly became one of the largest and one of the best JROTC programs in the state and also in the nation. Also during that time frame, I ran for Melbourne City Council in 2016 as well as 2020, won both of those elections and served on the council. And as part of that, I was asked to serve on the Melbourne Airport Authority Board. In the last 2 years of that, I served as the vice chair. That airport has about a $3 billion impact on the local economy here in the Space Coast. So I've got 37 years of leadership experience. If you count up what I've done in the Army, what I've done at Bureau High School, what I've done as a public official, 37 years. And so I'm more than qualified to serve as your state senator for District 19. I'm running for Senate District 19 because we need new perspectives and new ideas. It's time to get the old guard out and get somebody new in there that's going to be a warrior for Space Coast policies and Space Coast prerogatives here in our area. So that's why I'm running. Tim Thomas, Senate District 19. Vote for me.
Alrighty, thanks, candidates. For this opening question, we're going to go with Mark first, then Tim, and then Marcy. And this is something that you already mentioned, Marcy, but you guys are running for a seat that's vacated, that was held for 8 years by Mayfield, as I've already mentioned. Do you guys favor limiting state legislators to a lifetime term limit of 8 years in the House and 8 years in the Senate? Go ahead, Mark.
I am in favor of that. And I think what term limits do is they prevent corruption and they promote new ideas and new people with those ideas. So, the longer somebody serves in politics, it seems, the more corrupt they become and the more beholden they are to lobbyists and PACs and special interests rather than the people that have elected them. So I am fully on board with that. We should have a law that's a lot stronger than the current law, and it should be a lifetime of 8 years in the Senate, 8 years in the House, and you're done. And you need to move on with your life and go and continue your career, not as a politician, but as a person, contributing to society. So I definitely agree with that.
Okay, Tim, you're up.
Oh, absolutely. I'm for term limits. Again, 8 years in the House, 8 years in the Senate, and no legal wrangling, no splitting of hairs. We need to clean this up and make sure that we follow the term limits and no more career politicians. And that's the problem that's taking place here in Brevard County right now. We've got too many career politicians that are controlled by special interest, and we've got to stop that. And the only way we do that is through term limits.
Okay, and Marcy, I know you've already touched on this, but you have a chance to answer this question as well. Go ahead.
Sure. Since this is what got me in the race, I'd like to talk about it for my full 2 minutes, as a matter of fact. But this is huge. In 1992, that's when we passed a constitutional amendment. It's in the Constitution, which we all take very seriously. It's not just a law. But the constitutional amendment, the language that was before the voters had many things in it. First, in the ballot summary, it said we were limiting terms for incumbents who held the same office for the preceding 8 years. Then the full text of the ballot amendment referred to, we want it just like governor and president, also implying 8 years total. But when it got into the Constitution, the little weasel word of consecutive got in there, and that's what is allowing Debbie Mayfield to go back in again. Despite the fact that the voters' vote was clear, 78% favored this, and we had the discussion at that time. This was marketed as 8 years total. So I think the will of the people and the spirit of the law is absolutely clear. And I think that the Supreme Court is mistaken in allowing her to weasel back in office, which is what this is. I think we need a new constitutional amendment, just simply eliminating that word consecutive. And if that's eliminated in the Constitution, it's Article 6, Section 4, just eliminate that consecutive, and that makes it clear that it's 8 years total. Thank you.
Okay, great, guys. Why don't we talk about insurance for a moment? After the hurricanes last year, homeowners fear yet another round of insurance rate hikes are on the horizon, which could have some really damaging economic effects. If elected, what would you try to do to ease rate hikes while ensuring that insurance companies can remain financially healthy and remain in Florida? We're going to go with Tim, Marcy, and then Mark on this one.
Yeah, really good question. So I think the tort reform that was passed in 2023 is starting to have an impact, and we're starting to see some lowering of those insurance rates. I think the other thing that's happening here just recently is we're starting to get an influx of more insurance companies that are coming into the area. And obviously when that happens, it's going to create competition, and competition is going to drive down prices. Additionally, I think the other thing we need to take a look at is all this money that we're saving as a result of Doge. We need to give some of that money back to the state so they can give it to their citizens for homeowners, some type of a homeowner's tax credit. And that will give a little bit of a relief as well. But that's what I think we need to do to address this insurance crisis.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Now we're up to Marcy. Insurance, Marcy, what do you think?
Sure. I thought about this a little bit, and one of the things I observed, and it goes back to how an economist thinks, but an economist wants proper incentives for good behavior and high costs for bad behavior. So when you think about the storms and the property insurance, the most important thing for our homes is storm hardening. And Governor DeSantis, I see, has proposed some tax exempt days, the sales tax holidays on a couple of days for storm doors and everything. And as I thought about that, I thought, well, that's a good idea, but it doesn't go far enough. We need to have everything for storm hardening. And I'm talking shutters, doors, the windows. I want those to all be tax exempt. We have very few tax exempt things in Florida: prescription drugs, groceries, seed and fertilizers, software, and some manufacturing. But why not storm hardening? Anything that we do, anything we spend to make our homes safer will make less costs on the insurance company. So I absolutely advocate that all of our storm hardening things are completely tax exempt. So that's as an economist thinks, and it's something that I've never heard before. So I hope you like it.
Okay, thanks, Marcy. And now, Mark, the same question.
Yeah, so this is a topic that is very near and dear to me because it's one of the causes that my generation isn't able to afford homes right now. So in 1981, the average age of first-time home buyers was 29 years old. Today, the average age is 38 years old. So people like me, we're not even thinking about buying homes. And part of the reason is because the high cost of insurance and not knowing how much that insurance is going to increase year over year. So there's two ways to combat this is one, to increase competition. Like any business, the more competition there is, the more they have to fight over the pricing to win over customers. And two is to decrease risk for the insurance companies. So something that is increasing risk in the state of Florida is the overdevelopment of areas. So when we're overdeveloping areas and we're increasing the risk of, say, flooding for certain areas because we're overdeveloping them, then the risk for the insurance company is increasing, thus they have to charge more money. So two prime examples that we need to focus on is increasing competition and lowering the risk for something such as overdevelopment. So if we focus on those things, it will help get the prices down, and that will help people like me, people in the younger generations, to actually be able to afford to be a homeowner. So.
Great. Thank you, Mark. For this next question, the order is going to be Marcy, and then Mark, and then Tim. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Indian River Lagoon. What more specifically should the state be doing to balance healthy growth and development without further harming the Indian River Lagoon ecosystem or the economy?
As I thought about that one, and as I've talked to people about the Indian River Lagoon, there's two huge problems. And the Indian Lagoon has degraded significantly in the past 10 years, and it's principally attributed to development. What happens on development is we concrete jungle the places, and we have all this stormwater runoff, and it goes off into the Indian River Lagoon. We also have grass clippings. The mulch, the muck actually is made up of mulch in a sense, all of the grass clippings, and that's what ends up in the Indian River. So one of the things that we really need to do is give incentives for all new developments to hold their stormwater on their property 100%. There need not be runoff to the Indian River. They need to have much more, they need to be certainly with lots of retention ponds and keeping their water right on their property. And as a matter of fact, I did a video earlier this morning of my yard. People like me, I live in Grant Valkyria. We've lived here for a long time, And my property taxes should be lower because I live here. We moved here 30 years ago. Land was cheap, and we have a lot of the land. So all the stormwater goes through my land and it goes straight down to the aquifer. Nothing goes down to the Indian River. So I think people with that are retaining water, they should have property tax exemptions for that, giving them credit for keeping the water on their land and not putting it in the Indian River Lagoon. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Now you're up, Tim.
Great. Yeah, I think we have some great funding in place with the half cent sale tax. And I think we're seeing some great success also with the muck dredging that's been taking place. However, I think if we're really going to fix the problem, we've really got to address the conversion of septic to sewer. And I really think that's going to be the game changer in keeping that Indian River clean. The other thing I think we have to address is, we're growing at a rapid pace. We're expected to grow 13% here in the next 5 to 8 years. And obviously we've got the possibility of Space Command moving here, NASA headquarters. And so with that, we have got to be able to start preparing our infrastructure for that growth that's going to be coming in. So again, we need more water, we need more resources spent on infrastructure, and in particular, our water treatment facilities, as well as upgrading those that are already working to make sure that they're not leaking any of this wastewater back into the Indian River Lagoon. And that's what I think we need to do to address the problem.
All righty, thanks. And I apologize to Mark because that was actually his turn. I jumped you, Mark. Sorry about that, but you're up right now. Same question about the lagoon.
Yeah, so I grew up fishing the Indian River Lagoon, the Banana River. Those are both key things, and also the St. John's. So these are 3 key bodies of water for our Central Florida, and all of them across the board have been declining over my generation, and I know over Tim's and Marcy's generations. And we've seen the fish declining, everything's declining, and year after year, politicians, they talk about the grass clippings and the this and the that, and nothing's ever done. We did all vote for the half-cent sales tax, and supposedly that's going to the river, but I mean, I don't think anybody's seen evidence of any improvement in the river. And the core heart of the river is the seagrass. So the seagrass is essentially the natural filter of the water. So without seagrass, we're not going to have a healthy, thriving river. And there's things that contribute to the detriment of the river, like the septic to sewer and the grass clippings. But if nobody's going to do anything about it and we're just going to keep talking about it, then that's exactly why we need to get career politicians out of office, is because they like to talk about the problem, but they don't like to actually give a solution to the problem and use our tax dollars that we're already paying to actually solve that issue. So it's a very complex problem and it's very layered, but I think if we actually start spending the money that we're paying and improve our lagoon, I think that would be a good start. And the lagoon is a tourist destination, and I think the more and more we see it decline, the more and more we're going to lose out on those tourist dollars. So I think it's something very important.
Alrighty, thanks, Mark. And to keep us back on track with the order of things, we're going to go with Mark, Tim, and Marcy on this next question. In light of the planned closing of Rockledge Hospital, what could you do as a state senator to assure that your district has adequate hospital coverage?
So this is actually super near and dear to my heart because my wife was supposed to deliver at Rockledge Hospital, and now we're being told that we have to drive over an hour to every appointment and for when my wife actually delivers our son. So this is a very complex issue, and what it comes down to is money. So Orlando Health is choosing to close Rockledge Hospital because it's not making any money and it's losing money. But the amount of people that are going to suffer due to this closing and this really rapid closing, so they gave us a couple months notice, it's going to be a detriment. So I think that as a state senator, they should step in and give it temporary funding or look at some kind of way to lengthen the timeline of this problem so we could hopefully, Orlando Health could work out a better solution, because right now they're proposing a new hospital, but there's no plans for that right now. And I know that the surrounding hospitals cannot take the influx of patients that Rockledge is taking right now. So this is like literally a matter of life or death. So in that situation, in a life or death situation, I think the state should be required to step in at least temporarily to essentially save lives. So this is something that the state needs to be addressing, and I think our state senator now should be addressing this, but I don't hear any discussion about that.
Okay, thank you. I think you're up now, Tim.
Right, and I'll just say this is very personal to me. My daughter works at that. Our daughter-in-law works at that hospital. Her and my son have been married for 5 years. They're just starting their family, have a brand new baby boy, my grandson, and this is going to impact them. And they're losing their jobs, or she's losing her jobs on the 22nd of April. And so again, that's just one of 800 employees of that hospital whose families are going to be impacted by the closing of the hospital. And so what I want to do is I want to support Mayor Price and also Mayor Blake's attempts to try to keep the hospital open for at least 2 years. I think trying to close it so quickly, I think we're rushing to failure. I think we're putting a tremendous strain on first responders who are already overworked and exhausted and underpaid because of the circumstances that they're in Brevard County. And we really need to take a step back and really think this thing clear before we try shutting it down so quickly. So I think, again, leaving it open for 2 years as the mayors have requested, and then making sure that we have all the logistics in place to continue to provide care at that hospital for the people in Cocoa and Rockledge, and then also make sure our first responders logistically can continue to support until something else is decided to be done, whether it be build another hospital or maybe to go ahead and modernize the hospital that's currently there. But we definitely need to keep that hospital open for 2 more years.
Okay, thank you. And now you're up with the same question, Marcy.
Okay, so my attitude towards this, first of all, it's a puzzle. I'm not so sure exactly why Orlando Health bought the hospital, because it was bankrupted by Stewart. It's just a puzzle to me. But given the situation, I agree and I support Mayor Price's and the Rockledge City Council's resolution that they just passed, Resolution 2025-904. But not only have they asked that the hospital remain open for 2 more years, but they really insist that they work with the other hospitals in the area so that we can have a continuation of care. It's entirely too abrupt just to cut things off on April 22nd. It's not fair to the community. This is 60 to 70,000 people that this hospital serves. And yes, lives are going to be at stake. But in addition to asking that they really insist that they work on continuity of care, there is another option, and the state of Florida does have a possible role to play here. If we find Orlando Health to be recalcitrant and just ready to just close things off, the state can step in. And it's very rare, but the state does operate hospitals. The state has the Florida State Hospital, which is in Chattahoochee. It's the mental health hospital for the state. So under dire circumstances or really very important situations, the state of Florida can step in. And that's something that I think our state legislators need to have an eye to see if the state can step in and really help the 60 to 70,000 people that this affects. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you all. For the order for this question will be Tim, Marcy, and Mark. Let's talk about firearms for a second. What are your views about open carry?
Well, obviously, being a military guy and growing up in the South, I'm very pro Second Amendment, and so I'm for open carry. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. This is something that the Florida needs to make sure that we always stand up for, and I am an open carry candidate for sure.
Okay, thanks, Tim. And now, Marcy, what do you feel like about open carry?
Okay, I'm also an open carry girl. I have a carry permit. I don't actually carry because I don't feel myself well trained enough, but I keep that permit so that I can safely carry my gun without any repercussions as we're traveling on the road. As far as open carry, though, although you won't find Marcy open carrying, I definitely want anyone that is super well trained to be able to. I definitely know that it deters crime. Another issue to be raised on this point is, yes, Dr. Marcy would even introduce a bill on open carry. And that's something that I want to speak to. We had another local legislator say that she was going to do this, but when she was faced with Senate President Albritton saying, no, 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 it's not going to go through this year, she backed down and left it in bill drafting, which those of us that support open carry find to be a breach of her promise. And I do find that. I think that I understand that Senate leadership said that the bill wasn't going to pass, but she could have respectfully said, yes, President Albritton, I understand that your rural initiative is of most importance, but I hope that you'll respect my need to stand for my word and my promise to my constituents when I said that I would introduce a bill. So I realize that you're not going to support me, but I do need to introduce the bill. So I think that's important that we have legislators that stand up and say that they're going to keep their promises true. So that's what Dr. Marcy would do.
Okay, great. And now, Mark, same question.
Yes, I'm a full supporter of the Second Amendment, and we are actually the only Republican-led state that does not have open carry. So we're behind when it comes to state laws. And also, so I think that we need to pass an open carry law to give people the choice to do that if they so choose. I know people who are store clerks or people who are traveling in an RV. I heard from a lady who she likes to open carry in states that allow it because she feels like she's safer when she's traveling alone and has a gun on her hip. So more power to her and more power to people like them. And also in 2018, Miss Debbie Mayfield, she voted yes and got passed the Senate bill that created red flag laws in the state of Florida. It created the 3-day waiting period in the state of Florida. And it also raised the minimum age for people to buy firearms. So I think that bill needs to be repealed, and most people don't even know that Miss Mayfield voted yes on that, and I think that's important that people know that. And I hope to repeal that bill and also pass open carry because, to me, those are violations of the Second Amendment, and that's what I support.
Alrighty, thanks. Well, you all made it off the hot seat, so I'm going to give you each now 1 minute to tell voters why they should vote for you on April 1st. I think the order now is Marcy, Mark, and Tim. So you have 1 minute on the clock. Why should we vote for you?
Well, you should vote for me because I'm an economist that ran her own consulting company for 30 years. I'm retired now. I have the time to devote to the job. I have the experience in Brevard County, having been here since 1967 as a very young child. I love Brevard County. I know the issues. I also worked in Tallahassee for 6 years. I didn't say that before, but I did that right out of my PhD program, working for the state. So I know Tallahassee. I have a long career of leadership in the economics area of public policy issues. And I hope that you will support me, Dr. Marcy Adkins. Thank you.
All righty, thanks. Up next is Mark. Why should we vote for you?
When you guys go vote, I hope that you look to the future. I know that you're all tired of career politicians, tired of people making promises that aren't kept. As am I. I'm not a politician, and that's why I'm running, is because I believe that we need people of Brevard and people that are for Brevard to represent Brevard. And I pray that you look to the future when you're at the polling station, you see those 4 names, and that you choose the name that best represents the future. Because ultimately, that's what we need to protect. We all have people that we love. I have my kids. I'm sure you have kids or you have grandkids that are going to live a lot longer than us. And we need to protect our future and keep the momentum going that we had with President Trump in 2024. We need to keep that momentum. And I think I will keep that momentum. And if you want to learn more about me and my campaign, you could go to voteleitner.com. And I look forward to hearing from you. You could reach out to me right there on my website. God bless.
All righty, thanks. Up next is Mark. Why should we vote for you?
When you guys go vote, I hope that you look to the future. I know that you're all tired of career politicians, tired of people making promises that aren't kept. As am I. I'm not a politician, and that's why I'm running, is because I believe that we need people of Brevard and people that are for Brevard to represent Brevard. And I pray that you look to the future when you're at the polling station, you see those 4 names, and that you choose the name that best represents the future, because ultimately that's what we need to protect. We all have people that we love. My kids, I'm sure you have kids or you have grandkids that are going to live a lot longer than us, and we need to protect our future and keep the momentum going that we had with President Trump in 2024. We need to keep that momentum, and I think I will keep that momentum. And if you want to learn more about me and my campaign, you could go to voteleitner.com, and I look forward to hearing from you. You could reach out to me right there on my website. God bless.
Alrighty, thanks, Mark. And now, Tim, why should we vote for you?
Well, I tell you, I have, again, been in the Brevard County now for 19 years. And again, lots of experience with regard to security because of my military career. And, one of the things that we really got to think about as, again, space dominance really comes into prominence here in the Space Coast with Space Command possibly moving here, as well as NASA headquarters, is we're going to have some additional security threats as a result of President Biden letting in 10 million illegal immigrants during his 4-year administration. And we know that these immigrants have ties to Al Qaeda. We know that they have ties to Iran. We know that they have ties to the drug cartels. So we need somebody that is really going to focus on Space Coast policies, Space Coast first policies, and a warrior that's going to fight to make sure that this area is kept safe, that we give our first responders everything that they need to deal with these additional threats that are going to be in and around us because of the illegal migrants. And I'm the person that can do that. I've got the experience. I've cut my teeth in this community. I've shed my blood, sweat, and tears. Y'all seen me at community events, veterans events, at political events. Y'all know me. Y'all know that I'm dedicated. You know I'll be a warrior for you, and that's why you should vote me. So to learn more about my campaign, please go to timforsenate.com and check me out. And we look forward to serving you.
Alrighty, thank you, Tim Thomas, Mark Leitner, and Marcy Atkins for being here, and good luck in the April 1st primary. Thank you for watching. I'm John Torres, engagement editor for Florida Today, a part of the USA Today network.